to it. So you vote.
All right, everyone. Thank you for your patience and allowing me to have a break. Item number 4 on the list is the city manager report. Lance, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4A is the confirmation of the deputy city manager. I'm proud to bring forward Mr. Webb Warren as our candidate and hope that council will see fit to appoint him as my deputy.
Mr. Overdeer.
Okay, so I talked to Webb last week, and I've known Webb for quite a long time, and I know that he does just about anything that needs to be done in the city. And if they got a project that needs to be done, and they don't know who's supposed to do it, they give it to Webb. So I think he's eminently qualified for this. I move that the city council approve confirmation of Mr. Webb Warren as a deputy city manager.
Second.
I got a motion. I got a second. Mr. Braden, you're first up.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't talked to Webb, but I have talked to Lance on a couple occasions. And I've had concerns. Love Webb to death. I think he's irreplaceable as an employee. But Lance has done a wonderful job, and he's wanting Webb to assist him, and I guess it's when it comes right down to it, it's the city manager's job that's on the line, not Webb's. So anyhow, I support it 100%. I think Webb would do a good job with it. That's all I've got, Mayor.
That was a nice way of putting that. Well, I think we've had a deputy city manager for quite some time, so I don't think this is a position that's being made up. If anyone has any concerns about salary or anything like that, was this salary already existing in the budget, Lance?
This position is fully budgeted for this fiscal year.
Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you. I did have a question in terms of duties. Does this mean at some point we're going to have to try to find an assistant in IT, or is he going to be able to continue in a full IT capacity? Can you kind of address that concern?
No. We will absolutely have to go back out and find a new director for the IT department. I couldn't do that to Webb, saddle him with both. There's plenty of responsibility as the deputy alone. That being said, we do plan to, if you approve this nomination, then we do plan to do some restructuring as to what the duties include. And I foresee Mr. Warren being put in charge of what I consider to be support services in City Hall, which that way he can still have some control over IT. He will just be the IT manager/director will be working through him, along with the other support services in City Hall, such as HR, risk management, finance, and the clerk's office.
Great, thank you. And I have to say, I've only had professional, polite, friendly conversations with Webb. I've never seen anything that would give me pause. And I trust your judgment as well, so I'm in favor as well.
One thing, maybe just for clarity in the future, is have distinct job description for deputy city manager and the IT. I think there is already for IT, but just, for future councils, to take into consideration. And also, since I've become mayor, there's always been a strong feeling amongst this council that to look within first if people are qualified to hire them. And so I think you've done a good job evaluating that, Lance. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. If you recall last meeting, you commented about thanking the council and supporting the city staff the way they did, not a lot of bickering and all. And I already said earlier about Mr. Fuller. Last council meeting, I asked for a briefing about a bridge authority, and they did it that fast. And that's a testament to the city manager and the staff. I've said before, they're doing a great job, and I think Mr. Warren's being put in this position is only going to help the team that much better, and I'm 100% in support of it.
Well, I entertain a motion then. We got it? All right. Sorry.
Motion done.
Too many chocolate chip cookies and Diet Coke. So we got a motion, we got a second. Any further discussion on city manager's recommendations? Seeing none? Vote unanimous, so moved. Mr. Warren, congratulations. Good. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. And just so you know, we do have a revised job description, and I will email that out to you. I apologize for not having that in your packet tonight. Moving on to item B, we have the confirmation of Michael Burgess for the position of Public Services Director. We've been out without a Public Services Director for several months. It's been a little bit painful, and as you remember, Council graciously allowed me to split that position into two positions, so it's now going to be the Public Services Director and a separate city engineer, which they were combined before, which I'm not sure if it's even possible to do both of those jobs together. So I thank you again for that. And Michael has been with us for approximately 4 months. He brings with him 5 months. 5 months. He will correct you, so don't worry. He's not afraid to speak out. He's got a lot of experience. He's got more letters after his name than I've ever seen before on any resume. He's a good guy. I expect good things from him. He understands where we've been, and he knows where we want to go. So I am recommending Michael Burgess as our Public Services Director.
Mr. Overdeer.
Okay, so I didn't know Michael as well as I knew Webb, because Michael's only been here for a few months, but I did talk to him, and I interviewed him last week. I looked at his resume. He's got a great resume. He came to us from Georgia, where in Georgia he interfaced with Public Works quite a bit, and so he's very well versed in that. So I'd make the motion that the City Council approve confirmation of Mr. Michael Burgess as the Public Services Director.
I got a motion.
Second.
And I got multiple seconds. Seeing, we'll just take Ms. Ramswell's because I heard her first.
Okay.
And so is there any further discussion? Seeing none? So moved. Welcome aboard, sir, even though you're already here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I expect great things from Michael, so we'll be moving forward. Hopefully, he will now be involved in the final process to select our city engineer. I think that's only fitting since the city engineer will be reporting to him. So we hope to see a candidate in the very near future to get that slot filled too. We're coming close to being whole again, so it's been a long journey.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of the inefficiencies has been from just pure undermanned community development and just our staff in general. So I appreciate the hard work by you and HR. Go ahead with our next.
Item 4C is with regards to the selection committee scoring of the Airport Road project at the last meeting. First of all, I would like to say this project for Airport Road and trying to improve the safety on that curve. The funds are coming from the federal government, so it puts us in a position that we are not normally in, where we have to strictly abide by the federal rules and guidelines. These are fairly new. The Brooks Act and the CFR 200 guidelines outline specifically how we're supposed to act in this situation. And I just want to say I don't think that the staff was completely prepared, and I'm not blaming anyone, it's just that this is a new process, and I have directed staff to fix this gap in our process so that we will be able to better explain how to proceed with this type of thing in the future. So that being said, we submitted our results to FDOT, and they came back to us telling us that they were invalid and offered us 3 solutions. We could either proceed with the project and fund it ourselves, which is really not an option. We didn't budget for this project. It's just south of $105,000. We could decide that the individual who's didn't completely score, and that Councilman Braden, and I've had a talk with him, so this is no secret. He could withdraw if he chooses to, and the scores from the remaining 5, because we were short Councilwoman Ramswell that night, could be used to determine the winner. Or we could scrap it all and start the RFQ process all over again, which would put us behind somewhere in the 3 to 5 month neighborhood. So really no great options at this point, but that's the situation we're in, so I'm looking to council for guidance on this.
What was the second option? One more time.
Councilman Braden could elect to withdraw his ranking, and the remaining 5 rankings could be used to determine the top-ranked engineering firm.
Would that keep things on schedule?
Yes.
Rodney, how do you feel about that? Just to cut to the chase so we don't have a whole bunch of discussion. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I've talked to Lance about it, like you said. And I still think I'm gonna stay with my decision and not pull my vote.
You're not going to?
Correct.
Okay.
In that case, I'll support Mr. Braden, and I'll go ahead and make the recommended motion that we go and re-advertise and start the process over.
Okay, I got a motion. Do I have a second? And then we'll start discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. Let's go, Mr. I got you, Skip, in just a second. Go ahead, Chatham, you are already.
We're just pushing it back 3 to 5 months. I mean, is it because you're not, it's not the engineering firm you wanted? Or why is this? I mean, but on the rankings, you had one of the criteria was availability, and you scored them 20 points, but you scored 0 for 3 of them. But they were all available. So is there a logical explanation as to why you ranked one of them with 0 for availability? I have no idea why the other 3 companies got 0s.
I think the whole process and the way I ranked them was really unfair, because I did listen to all. I didn't rank anybody until the end, and once I listened to everybody, that was the company that I felt the best about. And then I, gave them the 25 points or whatever it was, ranked them, and then gave the other ones a 0. But I don't think it's fair to the rest of them either if I just pull mine all together. So I just think the process wasn't fair, and if I had to do it over again, I would rank them all, accordingly.
Yeah, and in deference to you, Rodney, I was kind of confused on what we were actually trying to, how it all worked as well. The only thing is, I guess Lance said if Rodney withdrew his rankings, it would change who it would be awarded to, and I'm sure you're aware of that. So is that why you're the main reason why you want to start over, so we can re-rank it?
Yeah, because like I said, I don't think it's fair. I mean, the one that got selected was the one that I ranked. It's not because not the one that I didn't get.
But it's because you had ranked everybody 0. And
exactly.
So
that's why I said the process wasn't fair the way I ranked it.
Okay, I think just delaying it, is frustrating, but I understand it's, like Lance said, it's 3 not great options, so.
And unfortunately, we're wrecking every week, every day there. I guess since our last council meeting, I saw 3 rollovers just in the last 10 days, or less than that, actually, about 8 days. Skip, would you like to weigh in?
Okay, yeah, so I mean, obviously, we don't want to be ineligible for reimbursement, so we want to be reimbursed. So we got to get their approval, so we got to do it the way they think is acceptable. The other thing is, I don't want to see us delay this thing any more than what we already have. I mean, to delay it another 3 or 4 months to go out for another RFQ, I'm telling you, if Tuffy Dixon was here right now, we'd be unscrewing him from the ceiling right now. So in the interest of us moving forward, I just think that we ought to go with option 2. So I can't support the motion. I think we ought to go with option 2 and take Councilman Braden's ranking out, and then let the other 5, rank them the way the other 5 scored them, and see who comes out then. And I know it's going to change who's going to actually be selected, but that's the way it probably would have turned out originally if Councilmember Braden had ranked all the other members and given them some points, which he gave them none. So that put them all at a disadvantage that they wouldn't have gotten if he'd have ranked them. So for that reason, I'm not going to support the motion.
I don't see anybody else on the list. My only comment is I think there's a no-win on this vote and there's a no-loser, because even if the vote's defeated, I don't think it's a reflection, Rodney, on you in any way. It's just you didn't understand the entire process. I didn't myself either. I did the best I could under the circumstance. It just didn't turn out the way we intended. And the city managers assured us that from here on out, we'll have good, clear explanation on how we do this kind of procedure in the future. So at least the good news is we'll know what we're doing next time. So see no further discussion. Ms. Ramswell, would you like to weigh in before we vote?
I do. I always like to think outside the box. And are there any options that are not explicitly mentioned here, such as maybe going out to the people who bid and see if, and maybe this is subject to a governmental regulation of some sort, but could we just do a reevaluation of the same 3 that presented without having to re-advertise to save time?
We actually called back to FDOT and asked if there was any other way we could do it, whether we could just rescore, and I mean, with the presentations that we heard, and just to maintain their transparency and relationship with the federal government, because they're getting the money from the federal government. They're kind of a conduit for this. They said those were our options that we had at this time. I wish I had a better answer. I really do.
There you go. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second and we've had discussion. Anyone else want to weigh in? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote on this particular motion.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Go ahead, Parker.
Yeah, the motion was to re-advertise and go through the process again.
Go ahead and vote, council members. The vote is 4-3. Ayes have it, so moved. There we go, Lance. And in the interest of time, let's put that on the agenda for the next council meeting.
It will just need to go through our bid committee and start that process over, and we'll advertise it, and once we get them back, staff will rank them and bring them back to you for your final ranking.
Maybe one thing we can consider is setting up a couple of those radar speed limit signs that the sheriff's department has, so when you're going speeding, the blue light turns on, and at least try to slow people down in the interim. I know there's a cost associated with that. If the council would like to address that officially? Okay. You think you can work that out for us, Captain? One going each way? Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have a question. That big sign that we had out there not long ago, was that our sign? The big,
It's sheriff's.
okay. That helped. I had citizens call and said that made a difference. It wasn't, they're not big enough.
The flashing light gets their attention. All right.
Wait, I have a question. Have we thought about doing even like a temporary speed bump sort of a thing before the, oh, I'm seeing him going, no. Okay, I'm just thinking that would force people to slow down going into the curb, but maybe it's, say that again?
Okay.
Oh, good to know. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Lance. Go ahead, Lance.
Thank you very much. And just so council knows, tomorrow, 3 of our city staff members are going to attend training on the federal grant process to gain a better understanding of this type of thing. So we are truly working on it. So I appreciate your patience. Item 4D, we had some very good input from council. I thought a very good workshop regarding the flume, the comp plan, and the zoning map. We want to get formal direction. Since we were in a workshop setting, then we could not take a formal vote. So we are looking to council for formal direction. Seemed like we had a pretty good idea what direction we were heading. We offered 2 pretty similar motions, and it's up to council which one they want to use. They'll both get us where we want to go. So I'm going to defer questions to staff here who know this stuff a whole lot better than I do.
All right, well, do you want to let them weigh in first before we make a motion, have a second, and start the discussion? How would you like to do that, Kim?
Only if you need us to. If you want to go back through it, we can. If you know what you want to do, feel free. So you let us know.
I thought our workshop was pretty clear and concise. It's time to roll up our sleeves and actually wade into it, so go ahead, Mr. Destin.
All right, so fellow council members, I apologize. This is going to be a little bit of a long one, but I'm going to consolidate it so we only have to do it once. So I'm going to make the recommended motion, and I move to bring, 1, bring the zoning map into compliance with the adopted future land use map, with exception of areas 7 and 15 as set forth in the attachment A hereto and as noted in the staff presentation. 2, update the land development code based on all adopted comprehensive plan amendments. 3, create a Calhoun mixed-use village zoning category and declare a pending ordinance. 4, revise the town center mixed-use zoning category and declare a pending ordinance. And 5, amend the comp plan to reduce densities in the TCMU future land use designation. Specifically in regards to number 3 and 4, I'd like to read the following. Pursuant to Smith v. City of Clearwater, 383 Southern 2nd, 681, Florida 2nd, DCA 1980, a zoning in progress is hereby announced as to the above referenced city code and or land development code, thereby invoking the pending ordinance doctrine. Consideration of all applications for development approval, including any application for development order amendment, building permit, or zoning approval, which is received by the city after the date hereof, and which may be affected by the above referenced code amendments, shall be delayed until after final implementation of the such code amendments set forth herein above, and shall thereafter be compliant with such code amendments.
That was the motion.
I'll second that because only a lawyer could have done that.
Or lawyers, plural. And so we have, that's correct. So we have a motion, we have a second. My first comment is understanding that's going to be a big bite at the pie, and timing-wise, as a council, we'll get these on the agenda, and I guess we'll, just to ask you, Kyle and Kim, will we just do one at a time, or can we work on all of these at the same time?
So probably the first thing that would happen is the administrative rezonings, excluding 7 and 15. But the rest will all be worked on at the same time. There's more than one member of staff, so it's going to be a division of labor and working together. So I don't think it's going to take all that long. Definitely within the year-based process for the comp plan amendments. And the pending ordinance might take, we have to have an LPA and 2 ordinance readings. So a couple months.
And the comp plan amendments is usually about a 6-month process.
Yeah, we'll do it with the year.
Once we decide what we're going to amend, correct? Just to get approval from the state.
Right.
And so.
The state has a 30-day twice.
But so it ends up about 6 months. So with that last portion stating law, that just the building community or development community will understand that until this process comes to fruition, they're just going to have to, we won't render decisions on development orders until the planned amendments are written into law, correct?
No, it's only the two pending ordinances to the LDC that are covered by the pending ordinance doctrine. So, and those don't take 6 months, of course, those can be done in like 2 months. But the comp plan amendment, you just act under the current comp plan until it's changed.
Okay, Ms. Ramswell.
Yes, I'm a bit confused. I went back and I'm looking through the minutes back on June 5th, 2017, and that is when we were brought the Calhoun Mixed-Use Village zoning change to us, and we actually postponed it indefinitely. So we didn't make any moves to change it. So now, effectively, what we're doing is changing it to that, even though we didn't want to back in 2017.
My understanding is it doesn't have any sort of specifics to it. And the question now is, of course, not the question, the direction we're giving her is to come back with a proposal of an LDC for that specific land use area. And we can continue what that discussion that occurred last June, which is how do we really want this LDC to look? How do we want it to behave? What do we expect to be built in there? But leaving it completely vacant and without any sort of rules promulgated within the LDC for that specific designation, I think is worse than having something that you don't like, because staff has nothing to go on right now. So
Yeah, I guess I
basically,
just
we're not
thought-
adopting what was proposed back in June. We are simply giving them the direction to move forward so that we can basically build it from scratch.
Understood. I guess I was just thinking that we were removing it from the flume. And
No, it's in the comp plan, but it's not in the LDC. So remember, we talked about that issue of their zoning district needs to be consistent with the comp plan, but they don't have a zoning district to rezone to because it doesn't exist yet. So we need to create it, basically.
Okay.
And
Okay.
if you don't create it, we got problems.
Yeah. You could amend the comp plan if we're not going to create it and remove it from the comp plan, but you have not elected to do that.
That's an option. But I don't think that's one that some people on this council want to do. They want to actually figure it out. Now, will you come back to us with some recommendations, and then we start paring that out?
Yes.
So you'll initiate the discussion on that particular
Community
zone?
development staff will, yes.
Okay. Everyone good with that? All right. Any further discussion on this one? Man, let's take her to a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. And this is an exciting time because now we can get ready to start fixing it, getting everything done. So we got full staff and everybody's ready to roll up their sleeves, including this council. So I appreciate the vote, council. Go ahead there, Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4E is a discussion regarding remote auto sales ordinance. Mr. Alan Turner, who is a prominent auto dealer in our county, is leading the charge on this initiative. He has asked the county to enact an ordinance prohibiting automobile tent sales for companies that do not have a brick and mortar operation in Okaloosa County. Got that all out? It makes sense. It is he's trying to keep the money at home. It's obviously impacts the quality of the automobiles being sold. We can't vouch for those necessarily for the organizations coming in from other parts of the state using the tents. It's for your consideration that we have a couple of options, really 3 options. One is the county has drafted some language. We can support their ordinance and just let it cover us. If we would rather, we can write our own ordinance to prohibit that activity. or we can choose to do nothing. I will say, in the 15-plus years that I've been here, I have never seen an automobile tent sale inside of Destin. Not to say that it can't occur, but, I mean, I'm all for keeping our money at home, so I don't see a downside to this, but it's really up to council on what direction they want to go.
I attended a Okaloosa County League of Cities board meeting today, and of course you're meeting with the mayors and council members from all the other cities in Okaloosa County, and it was pretty unanimous that they felt like this ordinance is a good ordinance. It had unanimous support. A couple cities suggested that, though, because of home rule and local rule, they will probably provide their own ordinance. They'll just basically copy and paste the language to it. This situation is starting to become an issue throughout the country with online car buying. And there's some large organizations that do that, but I think what these organizations have found out over time is that there's still a need. People still want a personal relationship, so what they'll do is they'll do their brand recognition, and they'll lease a piece of property, and they'll put up a tent, and they'll advertise to everyone they're already hitting up on the internet and say, hey, we're going to be in your local area and sell you some cars. And so the people like Lee Pontiac and the Cadillac dealership and our Nissan folks, you know, they feel that's an unfair advantage. And because, you know, they hire people to have jobs in the county and they pay their taxes and stuff like that. So they're just asking for a little bit of political coverage on how business is conducted in Okaloosa County and the city. So I'm in support of this. If the council feels like a city ordinance to address it, then I would make a recommendation we look at doing something like that. Mr. Oberdeer.
Okay, so it's my understanding that if the county passes this ordinance and then we don't do an ordinance of our own, then the county's ordinance governs us. So we don't even need to do one, really. But what I would do is, I would just, I guess, make a motion to have the staff review the ordinance, and then know that the council would then ask you to send a letter of recommendation or support or whatever to the county in support of their ordinance.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second.
So Bubba's Auto Sales won't be around.
What?
Bubba's Auto.
That Bubba can't. Mr. Orr and the rest, we do have a couple car dealerships in our community, and I think it's very important that
The only place I've ever seen this happen has been in the Walmart parking lot, which is in the county, so I think I have seen that happen in the Walmart parking lot, so.
Okay. All right. Any
Are
further? Go ahead,
RVs
Ms. Brown.
classified as autos? Because that's what I've seen in the Walmart parking lot, is the giant camper RV. It's not classified as an auto?
I think they would fall under that, but I think most of the ones that have done that sales are local, like out there at Navarre. That's a big RV dealership. They've done it. I think there's some language in there if you want to look at the ordinance that if somebody wants to sell a couple cars, that doesn't apply. Like, you know, their personal cars, but it does prevent someone that doesn't have a business license for Okaloosa County, or in this case, if we follow through with City of Destin, if they don't have a business license operating as a licensed car dealer in our community, that they can't just come and set up and sell 30 cars or 30 RVs in the parking lot of Walmart in Okaloosa County. We can get clarification by staff.
Yeah, I can speak with Greg Stewart and clarify that. That's a good question, because as the ordinance is written, it just says automobile, so I'm not sure the answer to that.
What's the harm in this, in the cars? I mean, the car dealer's leading the charge for people to quit selling cars. It's kind of like me leading a charge to kill food trucks, honestly.
Well, you don't have a problem with food trucks that if they do business in Okaloosa County, but you would if they were, about 20 of them came
all
from.
over Destin, and they're certainly taking away from brick and mortar stores.
Well, I understand that,
But
but
I'm
they're
not
not,
gonna
they're
lead a
not coming
charge to
from,
shut 'em down.
20 of them aren't coming in from Tallahassee and operating for 3 or 4
No,
days.
but 20 of them are coming in and certainly affecting brick and mortar restaurant sales.
Well,
I just think the optics of me trying to shut down food trucks and a car dealer trying to shut down car sales.
Well, I would look at it, Chatham, as the fact that a reputable car dealer, the cars are going to be checked out, like the Carfax and things like that. If you don't know if Bubba's Auto
No,
Sales got a
that's-
got a wrecked car and put it back on the market.
That's state stuff.
Well, but some of what's been going on is these dealers, online dealers are buying cars that have been damaged in hurricanes, been flooded out in Galveston. This is where it really started, was Galveston, and they bought up this bad merchandise, and then they came in there and sold them, and then the consumer suffered the consequences. So anyways.
Well, the government can't save us from everything.
You can't? Damn, I thought Chatham was our savior. All right, so anyways, we got a motion, we got a second, and let's go ahead and vote. Ayes have it, so moved.
You going to put some car sales in the parking lot?
Mr. Morgan's my libertarian candidate for Congress.
Hey, from city council to Congress, why not?
Item
you go.
4F.
Go ahead there, Lance.
Thank you. Item 4F is the schedule of fees, Resolution 1905. We're looking to council for approval of 2 changes in the schedule of fees. We have Mr. Farmer here to answer any questions. I can tell you the 2 changes are minor. One of them is to enact the $5 per day parking fee that we discussed 2 meetings ago, I believe it was. The other is to enable staff to charge for the grandfathering administrative fees, and I probably didn't use the correct terminology. Correct me, staff, if I'm wrong. The process involved in an appeal to the grandfathering costs the city money, and this would enable us to recoup that fund.
Before I get to you, Ms. Ranswell, I have a question for you. Do we normally just do this once a year? Can we do it any other time if another issue comes up?
We can do it as often as we like. I know Mr. Farmer would prefer we probably only do it once or twice a year, but we're playing catch-up right now. We're behind. Yeah. So we're going to get caught up, and eventually it should be a once, maybe twice a year item.
Thank you. So I was just looking through some stuff, and I noticed that on page 18, we actually have on here a sexually oriented business employee license. And I'm wondering, since we banned our favorite venue,
We
the
shoved
strip
them into
club.
industrial zoning, so they can still open in
Oh,
industrial.
Okay, so this
But we
would apply.
effectively zoned them out.
But they can't sell alcohol.
Not
So we
really.
have to have this in here. Gotcha. Okay.
Did you do? So, we have a motion. Well, I didn't have the money. So we have a motion, we have a second. And before we take this to a vote, Lance, you and I talked about impact fees in development orders and replatting, stuff like that. Is that something that maybe we, even though we're making this adjustment today, that maybe we bring up, especially as we're starting to look at our visioning and stuff like that, what we want this to be in the future? We're going to start this comp plan amendments, stuff like that. Would that be a good time to address maybe a change in impact fees at that time? Is that okay?
I think the best time to address impact fees is as soon as we can possibly do it legally. And I have, Ms. Kopp is working on that along with Lewis to make sure we bring back some increases that we can enforce and that are legit. And I think we're long overdue for some of these increases.
Yeah, my main concern is we have the beach access initiative, and of course, we're going to try to do outside funding and TDC monies and Triumph funding, stuff like that. But at the same time, with some of these large-scale developments, at some point, people that live there are going to want to go to the beach as well. So that's why I want to maybe we take a real hard look at the impact fee aspect of future developments or redevelopment in the community as it pertains to big issues like beach access, purchases, stuff like that.
I agree wholeheartedly, and as the former Parks and Rec director, I agreed at that point too, because these large-scale operations that are coming into town, I'm all for them. I have nothing against them, but they're filling those units because the people want to go to our beaches, and our public beaches are full, and we need help to purchase additional public beaches.
Okay, well, I trust that community development and you guys will work on that, and we'll address that when we get into that aspect of it. So we have a motion. No, I need a motion to accept the schedule of fees resolution 1905.
Okay, I move that City Council adopt Resolution 19-05 and the associated schedule of fees for fiscal year 2019.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ayes have it, so moved.
Thank you. Item 4G is the City of Destin appointee for the upcoming Crab Island Committee. The county recently announced the formation of a committee to oversee some of the rules and regulations that are going to take place on Crab Island. They announced the process by which they're going to fill the seats for this. One of the seats is an appointee by this council. It doesn't specifically say it has to be a council member, but it does imply that it's going to be appointed by this council. So it may be a member of this council, or may be a member of the public. That's up to the council to decide. Here tonight to get your input on that. There is a specific process for whoever is appointed. There's an application process online, and there are also guidelines that the person filling out that application has to agree to with regards to background checks and other things, which you can read in depth if you're interested in filling one of these seats.
And I'm holding that application in my hand that I have filled out for myself personally. I'm interested in sitting on that. I think the commissioners, I spoke with a couple of them, they would like to have an elected official, whether it's a council person from City of Destin or the mayor or any members of the community. But
So we just heard you volunteer.
I am going to turn this in. I got to get it notarized. I am going to turn it in, and but I encourage anyone else that would, because the commissioners will vote who gets on this. But I am going to apply for that.
Mayor,
position.
I'm happy to appoint you, but I would, before we do so, kind of like to know where you stand in relation to the wasn't the ordinance, but the resolution we sent to the county. In terms, do you support it? Are you willing to support it on that commission? The alcohol ban, et cetera.
I spoke with the vendors prior to being elected, and I gave them a list of things that they ought to do because this was coming to a head. Everyone knew it was. And I made some recommendations for them just based off our experience in the political process during in fishery issues. And I'm happy to say that they didn't listen to a single thing I said. And as a result, they went and did their thing, and in the end, it resulted in them having some ordinances passed by the county that are really basically going to put them out of business. And being an entrepreneur myself, I'm a pro-business kind of person, and I really encourage people to work for themselves and chase the American dream. And so I try to work with them. Well, now I think they've learned a lesson. And so now they're in a position where they're in a bad position. They're going to have to make some serious changes, or basically by November 1st of 2019, there'll be no more commercial activity basically on there. This commission, after the council or the commissioners dealt with their ordinance, because of public outcry and because not everybody's anti-business on Crab Island. There's a lot of people that use their facilities. And so what they've tried to do, the political thing, is form a committee of stakeholders, non-stakeholders, to maybe come up with some compromises. And I feel like, I wake up every morning and try to be a fair-minded person. I've got some ideas that may help them survive if they're willing to capitulate. Most of the ones, there's a few of them are fairly arrogant, and that's why they didn't listen to me the first time, but now maybe they'll listen to this committee and come up with some ideas that would allow them to, some form of that, their businesses stay in business. So I just feel like I can not so much represent the city, but just try to take an issue that affects everyone, the city of Destin and Okaloosa County and all our tourism, and try to find some type of, common ground to where, they can remain in business, but at the same time not abuse the privilege of where they've been in the past 4 or 5 years. So basically, that's it in a nutshell.
I think my concern is the composition of the board lends itself to being very friendly to the Crab Island vendors. The livery vessel operator, the Crab Island business. I have no idea who the chambers are going to appoint, but I can imagine the Fort Walton Beach Chamber is probably going to appoint somebody pretty pro-business, pro-Crab Island. And so I would be looking at Destin, and then the county will appoint a general member of the public that utilizes Crab Island. I don't know who that'll be. I mean, he's either going to come down, there's not really a middle ground with people. They either don't like the businesses or they're kind of anti-government, stop killing the business kind of perception.
We all read social media, so I'm
my
with you.
concern is that it's going to be kind of like a lot of people argued the short-term rental task force was stacked in the residents' favor. And so I just want from the city of Destin to have a very moderating influence on the impulses that we saw when we were dealing with this issue at first.
Yeah, and I think my recommendations that they didn't listen to were exactly that. They were to provide some moderation to what they had, and they basically what I said is you need to pull away from the bridge, have a commercial area, permanent moorings that you pay for and get permitted for, and reduce your footprint. Well, 60 days later, I guess we got elected March 13th, I go over the bridge on Memorial Day and there's 2 times as many bouncy toys, and every single one of the little facilities is twice as big as it was, and they weren't olive drab, they were painted bright orange and yellow and green, and they did everything that they ought not to do from a public perspective. And so that's where I'm coming from, all things in moderation. So now if you want to anti any commercial activity on Crab Island, which one way or the other, I don't have a particular personal interest, but being a fair-minded person, I would try to find, and I think the council's seen me do this, I try to find a soft spot to land where everybody comes away with a little bit of something versus nothing. And right now, with the present ordinance as it's written, those guys will come away from nothing. So if y'all want to appoint another council member that just doesn't want anything on Crab Island, then I have it won't hurt my feelings.
Not at all, and I'd like to appoint you. How do you feel, just one more question about the prohibition of selling alcohol and the loophole that
That's one that's a no compromise for me.
Okay.
I mean, as you well know, we're in the restaurant business as well, and we have certain license requirements, and it costs a lot of money.
Sure.
And to try to circumvent state law, state and federal law, then that's a non-starter. I'm trying to find something for these guys to where they can still provide a service and make a living doing it in a way that benefits the community. And that particular issue, the alcohol end around that's not conducive to community.
Thanks for being frank.
Mr. Overdeer.
Okay, so I think Chatham recommended that the council recommend you to be on the committee. So I would second that recommendation. Yeah.
Mr. Mitchell. You're up, Steve. Okay. I'll get everybody right on down the line.
Okay.
I think you should skip me, but it's all good. I'll hit it again.
Okay.
I will not skip you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. First of all, obviously Destin has a great impact on everything that happens at Crab Island. Or I should say Crab Island has an impact on us. And I personally think that we ought to look into the possibility of having a larger footprint on this committee besides just one person, number one. Number two, I've had personally 2 citizens of Destin call me and ask me some stuff and wanted to volunteer. So we do have citizens out there that are interested. And I think the city managers had some interest as well. So we have to keep an open mind to that, too. We certainly can have the mayor or anybody else on this council, but I think we ought to leave the door open to appoint someone else as well, if that's possible.
I think what the commissioners have asked just people to put in their, put in an application, and they're going to be the determining factor. I don't think it's up to the city council. Actually, you guys can recommend, but they're still going to pick who they want. Ms. Ramswell.
So I was along the same lines as Mr. Minchell. Mike Buckingham reached out to me, I think the day that the article came out, and expressed his interest and immediately submitted an application. And like you, I mean, he's very qualified and has served as chairman of the Harbor Board, and he is willing and very anxious to serve in this capacity if we so choose. So I wanted to make sure and bring his name up as well.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. The problem I have with it is that I believe our charter states that is it the mayor is supposed to support the council decision, and pretty much in a nutshell, you just said you wasn't going to support it, that you was going to go in and try to work something out with them, and I believe it was the council that initiated this to the county to start something to get a hold of Crab Island, and that was the whole. This council voted unanimous to do just what we're doing, not to send somebody on a board to represent us now and try to work something out and keep a lot of that out there. I mean, that's what we initially said was, you know, eventually we give them three or 4 years, whatever the county wanted to give them to recoup their money from what they built out there, and then it was gone. And I just hate to send somebody out there, especially the mayor, that's not going to support the council in 100% of what we decided to do.
Well, I don't ever remember the council saying that you wanted to put people out of business. I don't remember that part. I think they were in favor of banning free alcohol giveaways. I may be mistaken, but.
Now what the county talked about is eliminating the alcohol, then they'd give them 3 to 5 years, is what Kelly Wines told me. They'd give them 3 to 5 years to recoup their money, and then they was going to move out altogether.
That's what the ordinance is going to do to them with the no overnight mooring. That was their roundabout, because even the county commissioner just can't make a declaration that they're putting them out. They're going to ban that kind of operation on Okaloosa Island. I don't think politically they wanted to go that route, so.
I'll still stand. I mean,
unless someone wants to make a motion to prevent me from applying for that commission spot, then I intended to do that. I still feel that way, but I mean, if somebody wants to call to question what our city charter says, then I'll have to acquiesce at the advice of our attorney. Mr. Morgan.
No, I support no commercial activity, you know, except maybe the peanut guy, you know, and the guy that rides around with ice cream. But but that came in front of us, and then they sent us back a revised resolution that allowed for the alcohol ban and kind of watered it down because of the outcry we've seen. And I still think there's lots of members of the public that agree with me that there should be no commercial activity out there. But I do think the cake has been baked on this committee. I think the way that it is stacked is you're not going to get that outcome. That committee's not going to produce a ban on commercial activity out there. So, you know, could you send me in there guns blazing and absolutely not agreeing to anything? First of all, I'm not going to do it. But secondly, I don't think you want me in there to just say, no, I don't support anything, so there's nothing to vote on. I recommend you just ban it. You know, and I don't think that's going to get us anywhere. I wish it would, because I would do it if I thought it would, but I don't think it will. And so, yeah, and I don't think the mayor would be violating the charter. I think he kind of holds the tenets we have. But anyways, we'll see, and we're not voting on this tonight, are we, Lance?
You don't have to vote on it tonight, right?
Yeah, we're waiting for applications.
Lance, you were up, and then Ms. Ramswell, and then I'll get Mr. Destin. Go ahead.
I was just going to talk exactly about that. We can vote tonight, or we can wait until the next meeting. We have time to do either. But just for clarification, we have been asked to appoint one member. So this council is getting one appointment that will serve on this committee. There are the other 3 at-large positions. That one is a representative from the recreational user, one is a livery business, and the other one is a vendor. So those are at-large. We do get one actual appointment on this committee.
Ms. Ramswell?
I was wondering, Mr. City Manager, if this is something that we could postpone till the next meeting so that we could all accurately review the applications that come in? Is that doable, or is that too far ahead to?
No, we can absolutely do that. We just have to have a quick turnaround as our meeting precedes the county's meeting by 1 day. So we just need to turn it around quick and get them the answers.
So as long as the applicants know that if appointed, or whoever is appointed, they'd have to attend the meeting the next day. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and if the public wants to put their name in the hat for this, they would have to notify my office so that I would have knowledge that they're interested, because if they use the county's process and the application process, I won't be notified that they're interested.
Well, with that being said, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we postpone this until the next council meeting to give council adequate time to review and consider any applications that come in.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My final item 4H is a few quick announcements. Just in general, I just wanted to let everyone know that early voting has started. It is only available in the Crestview and Shalimar locations. It is available between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. This week only, starting today and through Friday. So please, whoever you choose to vote for, get out and vote. That's all I ask. Number 2 is just so everyone, the public knows, our library will be closed this Friday. It is a staff training day for them. They will be attending some workshops that day to hopefully gain greater knowledge on how to be better library staff. Number 3, I wanted to thank Noel Bell for pitching in and filling in for Louis Nguzzi today. She is acting in his behalf, and it is her birthday, so I especially appreciate her doing it on her birthday. Lastly, I just wanted the council to know that next Thursday afternoon and next Friday, I will be out of the office and incapacitated. I will turn over the reins to Mr. Warren temporarily for that time period. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. We move into our public hearing portion. So under 5A, Kyle, would you like to take it away, please?
Yes, we have the second reading of ordinance number 18-24-CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin of Okaloosa County, Florida, relating to the purchase of certain real property for the Crosstown Connector, providing for authority, providing for finding of fact, providing for City Council approval of a contract for purchase of townhome unit located at 607 Sandalwood Drive, Destin, Florida, and providing for an effective date. This is a public hearing.
Okay. Would anyone like to come before the podium? We'll go ahead and open it for public comments. Or do you want to go ahead and get a motion? And it doesn't matter. Okay. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Overdeer.
I move the City Council approve ordinance 18-24-CN on second reading and direct staff to bring it back. No, the recommended motion can't be right. This is the second reading, right?
Yeah, I believe
so
the
recommended motion isn't quite right. I move the City Council approve ordinance 18-24-CN on second reading.
I got a motion.
I'll second it.
And I got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved. Public hearing, 5B, Kyle?
Yeah, we have the second reading of ordinance number 18-25-CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin of Okaloosa County, Florida, relating to the purchase of certain real property for the Crosstown Connector, providing for authority, providing for finding of fact, providing for City Council approval of a contract for purchase of townhome unit located at 601 Sandalwood Drive, Destin, Florida, and providing for an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone in the audience want to speak about this particular ordinance? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, well, this one's written wrong as well, but I move that City Council approve ordinance 18-25-CN on second reading.
I have a motion,
I'll second it, Mayor.
and I'll have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Ayes have it, so moved. Kyle?
So we have, for second reading, ordinance number 19-01-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to the location of swimming pools, providing for findings of fact, providing for an amendment to Land Development Code, Section 9.06.04, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
Thanks, sir. Is any further public comment on this particular ordinance? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Go ahead.
I move to approve ordinance, excuse me, 1901 LC on a second reading.
I have a motion,
I'll second that, Mayor.
and I have a second. Any further discussion? Vote is unanimous, so moved. Ms. Kopp?
For 5D, the application has been withdrawn by the applicant for consideration tonight, and they've requested that we continue it indefinitely until they resolve some outstanding issues with waste management.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So item 5D is off. So now we move, so this public hearing, do you want a motion to?
No, I'm sorry, what?
To that effect?
No, the applicant has withdrawn it for
Okay,
tonight.
all right, so we don't have to make any formal action on it. That closes the public hearing portion of our meeting at this time, and we'll move on to item number 6. Lance?
One item, Village Baptist Church requesting their annual 5K, 10K run walk.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
I got a motion, I got a second to accept the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none? Vote unanimous, so moved. All right, time to wind it up. Item number 7, Councilmember Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I got tonight is I continue to get compliments on our building department. Got one yesterday saying, I guess, that Mr. Lewis's speech he gave at the workshop was outstanding. But just continue to get compliments out of our building department, our staff. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Council Member Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. One question, we have talked about this a couple times, and I'm not sure when it's coming back up again, but the beach property acquisition status, when are we going to go over that again? I had a potential seller ask.
I actually reached out to the appraiser again this morning. Originally, he said somewhere between, I think, 60 and 90 days when we talked about this back in January. He's almost done with the appraisals. I did reach back out to him this morning, and he should be wrapping this up in the next couple of weeks. And I think we're trying to bring this back to council at next council meeting for discussion if we have all the appraisals done.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. And I think that's all I have tonight.
And just an update, Mr. Destin kind of gave a briefing at the TDC meeting to put a bug in their ear that we're going to be coming to them asking for some funding on this. And then he's got me scheduled to give a briefing on where we're at that, at this point in time anyways. At the March meeting, and I'll work with Webb. We'll probably use the presentation that we gave here, or a semblance of that, to give them an initial briefing. We know that the appraisals are below market value in certain instances, and so especially dealing with funding. If you're trying to get funding for a piece of property, you have to address that appraisal issue, and I think some of that will require multiple sources of funding. And I guess we'll tackle that when we get, where are we at, Webb, as far as the grant process?
As you know, we've discussed we've been discussing a strategy on how to frame this process, because there's multiple buckets as we move forward. And right now we are framing the discussion for various committees such as Triumph and others, so that we can attain those. And we certainly have been looking at multiple grants available in the state. They are very restrictive. There's some that are actually out of the grant cycle, so there's a time factor on those. But we'll give if y'all will, we'll be happy to provide a full presentation, assuming we get all the appraisals back for next council meeting. But we'll give an update.
And I think any time with an issue like this, it's going to be an uphill climb whenever you're asking for money, especially when the money doesn't have K's behind it, it's got M's behind it, then it even becomes more difficult. But we're taking it seriously, and with the help of the staff, we're going to press on, because I know y'all feel it's important, and so do we. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of things. First of all, as you know, traffic on 98 has been diverted again at the Walton-Okaloosa line. And if you look in Walton County, they have what I call raised pavement markers. They have a divider in between the two east and west lanes of traffic. Okaloosa County doesn't have anything but two yellow lines. And I realize the yellow lines are something that divide most roadways. But I think it's an extremely dangerous situation with the fog that we've had and everything else. And I would strongly urge the city manager to contact FDOT. We've contacted them several times. Lance and I had a brief conversation about that. But they need to do more than just have a couple of yellow lines in that traffic. You've got oncoming traffic driving 35, 40 miles an hour. In that fog we had last month, it's a disaster waiting to happen. So I'd ask them to look in that. The other thing I wanted to take the time, I'm in a unique situation, and I need to take the time to say a few thank yous. As you know, January 7th, I was honored when you all unanimously appointed me to the City Council. Well, this is my last City Council meeting before the election, and I may not be here the next council meeting. So I want to take the time, unlike other incumbents that are in place, they have the time to say thank you. Now, tonight's my thank you time, because I may or may not be here. And I just want to tell everybody, again, that the staff of this city is different than the staff from years past. Things are happening, things are positive. You look at how this council is cooperating, you're not having to knock down drag-outs, things are moving forward, and you've got to give the staff a little time. Don't be fooled and think that it's the same city staff that we've had in years past. It's not. We've got fresh new faces, and they're doing a fantastic job, and I just want to tell them thank you. I was honored to be up here. I appreciate everybody's vote. As Lance said, it's early voting right now, and all I would say is, regardless who you vote for the people in the public, I'm talking to people, and clearly half of the people I talk to on a daily basis don't even know there's an election. So please just spread the word to your friends and family. There's an election, and go out and vote. And again, I was honored to be here. I hope I'll be here next time, but if not, it was an honor to be here, and I thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Mr. Oberdare.
The only thing tonight, I'd just like to recognize we have some members here from the Destin Forward class that are here fulfilling some of the requirements for graduation. And I told them they're going to have to stay here till 9 o'clock to get full credits, so even when we leave, you still have to stay. And I spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, and I told them that a few years ago, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, Jason and I sat in that same class, and I told him just to be careful what you wish for.
You got lucky tonight. Go ahead, Mr. Marlar.
Thank you, Mayor. This is kind of strange, because I'm going to bring this up because it happened last week and started. If anybody has noticed, starting in front of Coyote Ugly, there's a new pole. It's a big, tall, black pole, and they're being dotted all throughout the city, and it's from AT&T. And the reason I bring this up is that apparently DOT and the city apparently have allowed these to be put in the right-of-way. The question is why are we allowing them? And we had a similar incident of almost 2 years ago with Verizon putting some in Crystal Beach in the same general thing in the right-of-way. So I'm kind of curious to what happened here, because some of the property owners that have been it's been put in front of their property are a little upset because they didn't get notified by AT&T or the city or anybody. And really, they're tall black poles and they're kind of ugly.
I'm not sure if you're talking about small cell wireless facilities,
Yes.
but assuming you are, there was a new law passed, and we also had a new city ordinance passed that regulates that, and we are required to let them locate in our right-of-way, subject to our ordinance.
Oh, well, and we don't have to notify the owners, because, I mean, there's several property owners have contacted me, and they're like, where did this come from?
There's a process in our ordinance that deals with registration requirements and other things, so we can talk after the meeting, and we can get with Public Works and see if they went through the process. I'm assuming they did, but I don't know offhand.
Okay, that's all I have, Mayor.
Councilmember Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. Only briefly, I'd like to entertain the council's interest in tweaking the budget adoption process that we've had. For the last 3 years, I've had a bit of heartburn in the way that we've done it, which was mostly, it was just proposed by staff several weeks before our statutory deadline. You know, there would be a couple of comments from council saying, well, I'd like to see some of this funded, and, you know, and this isn't picking on Bragg. Bragg will go back, work his magic, he'd come and say it's funded. And nobody would really ask the follow-up question, well, where did that come from? What exactly are we funding? I mean, it's a massive document that gets created. So I would prefer to do a process that has a few workshops where we go and sit down in a more transparent, collegial process. We develop from the ground up our budget. And I'd like to see it where the department heads can come and tell us in each department, come tell their council, listen, here's the hierarchy of the top 5, top 10 things that we think we need budgeted for in this coming fiscal year, and we can go through the priority process and go hand in hand with our finance director and city manager in building a budget from scratch. Most cities and municipalities and governmental agencies are supposed to do that, as it is our job to develop and appropriate the money, and I feel that we've delegated a little bit too much of it just to staff, so I'd like to see it be a much more open collegial process, but that takes some meetings, and I'd like to get council's feelings on the subject.
In the past, we've only done like one workshop prior to it, right? Basically, it's how we've done it in the past. So
We've done a few different ways, and I'm sure Kyron can speak from multiple ways before I was here.
okay, so Mr. Destin, so basically what, are you talking about maybe a 2 or 3 workshop type process where we deal with community development and maybe another department on one workshop, and then and kind of do it like that, or we could do like hour-and-a-half meetings and build the budget and just do department by department reviews? Is that what you're getting at?
That's what I'm getting at, building a budget, and that takes 2 or 3 meetings, but it's from the ground up. That's my suggestion.
Okay. Ms. Ramswell?
Yeah, one thing that we had talked about in the past, I can't remember when, but was the fact that we used to have a visioning session and talk about the things we wanted to see for the city. And for some reason, it always seemed to occur after the budget was already done. So, yeah, exactly. We were talking about how it would be better done opposite, so we could fund things that we felt were urgent, immediate needs.
Greg, in the timeline, where are we at when you really start working on fiscal year 19 budget? We normally vote on, is that sometime in April, usually when we do that?
No, well, we open the budget up for input from the department heads in April. When we have the visioning session, that's actually at the very front end of the budget process. We haven't, but primarily what that's involved with you guys is choosing projects and things of that nature to put into the budget as opposed to the operating budget of each one of the departments. And I think that's what Councilman Destin is talking about. I think he wants to have a say in the departmental budgets as well as the overall capital budgets. So, and there's no, we can do that. It would take, if you say you had one workshop just for your capital projects and then multiple workshops for your department budgets, which could also lead into capital discussions too. So it wouldn't be limited to just one for capital and like in that nature. And that we could do that. It would just probably the time frame would be in latter June, July time frame, because that'll allow us to get all of our revenue budget budgeted and the trim process to kind of get through that, so we know what our largest revenue source of property taxes is, and that way you'll have an idea on what our revenue base is projected to go through, and then we can build from the bottom up in that manner.
So we'll want to start this workshop process in April.
Whenever Lance and you as a group decide to schedule the visioning session, and then we'll start it at that point, correct?
Okay, because, you know, in my speech of the status of the city, one of my goals is that visioning process. Not, I was speaking more long-term, but as Mr. Dess is quickly pointing out, we do have some short-term visioning that needs to be addressed as too, you know, through capital outlay portion of the budget, let alone the departmental head. So I guess, Lance, what we need to do is schedule a robust council or a workshop process. Maybe you can solicit input from the council members individually. And
Absolutely.
And then you and I can sit down and come up with maybe a process of how we're, a stepping stone process to get where I think the council member wants to get.
Yeah, and staff had planned on coming back at the next meeting and discussing this issue exactly, especially now that we have a deputy city manager to help with this assignment. We will be moving forward with the visioning session in late April. And we'll have to pick a date that works for everybody. But ideally, what I would like to do is double up this year, and this goes along with what Mr. Destin was saying too, is double up this year, and then right after our new fiscal year starts in October, have another visioning session so we can get the ideas out there early in the year so that staff can do the research, get the numbers that we need, and start the process when it really needs to be started in the fall. We're a little bit behind this year, but we'll catch back up.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit compressed, you know, trying to get everything in a row. What we'll do, I think, is after you hear from individual council members how they'd like to see us translate it, you and I'll sit down, and then we'll bring it right back to the council, say, here's our plan of how we're going to, you know, how many meetings we think we need between now and June 1st or so. So everybody's on the right page that way. Does that sound good to you, Mr. Destin?
Yeah, develop a roadmap.
Okay, that sounds great. Ms. Ramswell, before we go?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in years past, I mean, Rodney and I both have these, but we would have a strategic planning visioning session where we'd literally go around and it would set out our immediate goals and then 10 years out, 20 years out, et cetera. And the last one that he or I have over here is back 16, 17. It's the last time we did this. And
yeah, so we got annually. A big gap here. So we need, 2030.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that might be a good starting place. Let's see where you guys were in 16. As far as ideas and visioning, stuff like that, they may be a good template to begin the process, a good starting point. So share that with Lance, and you know we'll start there.
That's all I got, Mayor.
Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. Lance, I think you have a good idea of what kind of visioning session we're talking about. Kind of that first one we had. You know where you actually get council input. Okay. And that's it, thank you.
I don't have anything, so let's take it right to our land use attorney, Ms. Kopp.
Yeah, the only thing I have is an update on the commercial events ordinance, which was going to be before you on second reading tonight, but we are going to make some tweaks to it to close out a little loophole, and I think in addition to prohibiting the commercial weddings, it's suggested that we limit the number of any weddings at a residence, maybe to 3 a year or something like that. We're going to take it to LPA in March, and then it will be back to you in April.
Is that all?
Yes.
All right. Kyle?
Nothing for me.
All right, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.